It's our pleasure now to be joined on this Capital Outlook profile with Senator Michael Van Flatern from Gillette, representing Senate District 24. Senator, you've been in public service in the legislature since 2005. You made the decision to run again in 2016. Why did you want to run again?
Well, I decided to run again because we need the continuity for one thing. We need the continuity, and there was projects I had not completed yet, which we are slowly getting some of the passing lanes done on 59. That was a big issue when I first ran. I think we've finished all the passing lanes we're going to do. There's a Garner Lake Road, which is going to be, we assume, the new Highway 59 going north out of Gillette. And that took some, what I would believe would be AML money, abandoned mine land money. It turned out that we'd kind of spent all the AML money, so we found some other money which cost us a couple passing lanes south of Bill to Douglas on Highway 59, and we used that money to build this, well, in the next 2 or 3 years you'll get this new Garner Lake Road extension, they call it.
You came to Gillette. You're not a Wyoming native, but it's work, the coal mines, that brought you here.
Yes, they did. In fact, I started out as a welder in the oil field for a year or so, year and a half, and then I went to the coal mines for a couple, 3 years. And then I went back as a contractor, a welding contractor for the coal mines for the next 18 years, and pretty much concentrated there, a little oil field, but pretty much concentrated in coal mining.
But you had a passion for flight.
Yes, about almost 30 years ago, I started flying. I took lessons in Gillette. It's a great airport to take lessons because it does have a tower and it does have all your approaches for the instrument landing systems that you would need to practice and to get good at learning how to talk on a radio, which is one of the great fears of every student, is having to actually talk on a radio to somebody else. It's, you know, in a tower.
You can't Facebook a message post to the
you
tower
can't
down
text,
the road?
You can't text them as you're going. Although today, if you know his cell number, you can text him. So it was a great place to learn, and we were expanding into Nevada and doing the gold mines there as far as, you know, welding. And so, you know, I built my hours going back and forth to Nevada. And eventually, when I sold that business, I got my commercial license, and then we built into this.
So when you're flying up, you're a pilot.
Yes.
When you're flying in one of your planes and you look down at Wyoming, and you understand very well that Wyoming is subsidized today about to the tune of 70% by the energy industry. What do you see in 10 years? You've worked with Endow, you've kind of contemplated what our future is now, and probably always have. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what's Wyoming going to be like?
Well, Wyoming has to change its attitude about how it funds itself and how it's perceived by the outside world. We are doing things in Gillette that are going to sustain coal, but at a lesser production. So we're going to go from, we were at peaked in 2012, I think, at 420 million, and we're around 300 million now. And so that's the new norm. So for the next 10 years, we'll probably sustain that. But if you want to diversify the economy and get us away from this boom and bust, which by the way, we were talking earlier, and this last 15, 16 years were the longest boom we've probably ever experienced in the state of Wyoming. So we went about 15 years with really good revenue, and it was all minerals. It was 70% minerals. If we want to diversify, if we want to attract new businesses, and your low taxes will not do it. That's not what you can.
Have we learned that finally, Senator?
I don't know that we've learned it as a state, but I can guarantee you that low taxes work well for the billionaires that move to Jackson and build a home for $20 or $30 million, because they're getting out of a high tax state like California. But for a corporation to come here and say, well, yeah, depending on your mineral industry, but the mineral industry is going downward a little bit, and so at one point you're going to slap a tax on me.
So what you're saying is that everyone else understands that painting.
Well, you know, the economic development person in Garden City, Kansas, when I went on a tour of a wind farm, wind laydown yard, I guess you'd call it there, She said, nobody has ever said to me, it's your tax structure, it's your low taxes. She said, that is not a good argument. You don't want to promote yourself as just the lowest taxes. You want to say, I have the most stable tax structure. And that's what the corporations and new industries are looking for. They're looking for a stable tax structure. They know the other shoe is going to drop someday, and it's going to drop on them.
It's an interesting perspective because we hear every year from the governor, we are open for business. Our taxes are low. We hear when the leaders of the legislature talk that our taxes are low, among the lowest in the country. You hear people from all over Wyoming say that. And yet, here we are today really wondering, are we at the tipping point? Is our reliance on minerals in the end, even if we can sustain somewhat of a mineral industry, gonna really hurt us?
It will hurt us because we go through the boom and bust. As I said, the last 15 years were the best we've ever, longest period of time. I've been through 3 busts in my 30 years, and the longest one was the last 15 years. So you have to understand that, I guess I've been here 40 years, but you have to understand that we have to diversify our tax structure, our tax base. We need to spread that out, and if it means that an inventory tax, let's say, has to go on corporations or companies, we need to do that now. We need not to say, come to our state, we have the lowest taxes, and once we get them here, we'll nail you with a big new tax. They're smarter than that. They know that probability exists. And so I look at it as a detriment. I may be a small minority in this state, but I do look as a detriment to say to a corporation, come, you know, a Saturn, a Tesla, whatever, come to my state and set up this 400-person factory, and then I get you here, oh, I can now get another $5 million out of you this year.
And will you stay? Awful question to have to ask down the road. I want to get back to airplanes. You gave a great story for those of us that were in the audience at the State of Aviation Summit that we had last year about a dog and a pilot. Tell us that story.
The future cockpit in every aircraft, because I think the conversation was formed by the fact of the autonomous airplane, which we all know will be, someday drones will be delivering packages, I guess is what Amazon's claim is. So the future cockpit of the world will be a pilot and a dog. And the pilot's there to feed the dog, and the dog's there to bite the pilot if he touches anything. And that is really true, because the people in the back will never feel comfortable. I don't think they'll feel comfortable in the next 50 years of nobody up front in the cockpit. So they'll put this human in there, but somebody on the ground, and the computers are controlling the aircraft. And truly, the dog will be there to bite him if he touches anything.
You gonna fly in one of those planes? Will you be a passenger?
Oh, I'd be a passenger today. I mean, I think it's detrimental to my future or my future of this company, but it's perfect for, there's nothing you could make, there's nothing about flying that could not be done by a computer today, and drones have proved that. So yes, you could have one person handling 6 or 8 jetliners easily.
When you think about technology, you think that young people might be able to grasp that a little more clearly than us older folks. And I guess back to Wyoming's future. Where do we sit in our ability to provide younger folks who will be wanting to stay here something different than hunting and fishing and those things that really appeal to us and to our generation that may not be as appealing to younger kids who want to be part of a high-tech world that develops autonomous planes or cars, or changes the way we deliver our energy grid, for example. How do we make that bridge for those folks?
You know, there's a couple of towns that are trying that here, a Cheyenne or a Laramie, because they're close to the Front Range and they can start to make that transition. Cheyenne and Laramie haven't conquered the livable space where you can walk to work and you can walk down to the stadium and watch your pro football teams or your pro baseball teams or hockey. But at least they can drive to Denver and see that same thing. This state's population is hurting it that way because we're so low populated that it's hard for us to create. Lander has sort of created the walking environment. If you don't mind the weather, you know, it just gets cold, but they at least have the walking area. You can move downtown. But when you go to the rest of these towns, they're all built around automobiles. So the cultural aspect is what attracts the young, and the population would be needed to start with to attract the sports teams or to get the clubbing, the nightlife to be there for those that are in the 20s, or we're hoping they're in the 20s anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think our low population is going to always be a detriment to our state. The outdoor living, the hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, we already have that conquered, and we're one of the best at it, but you know, the rest of it is going to be tough.
Senator von Flatern, you have said before you want to model yourself and the way you lead, just like Senator Al Simpson. Why, and are you able to?
You know, I think I can, of course I'm next Al Simpson, what would anybody say? But the fact is that
he's a little taller than both of us, but
yeah, he's, you know, physically I won't match him, but you know, otherwise I think I can. No, I really admire the gentleman because he seems to, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, really been nonpartisan. He's really gone and worked across the groups from the LBGTQ group all the way to the ultra-conservative no taxes. So I think that I fit in there somewhere, that I understand and sympathize with both groups, and that's what Al Simpson, in my mind, has been doing the last 20 years. He's been doing nothing but bridging that gap and taking the side of both sides in certain issues, whatever the issue happens to be. That's where I think I can match.
Some have written, though, that maybe our legislature is becoming even more conservative.
And I do see that. There is a group in the House and in the Senate. I'm not saying either is better or worse, but and the percentages are probably equal. But there is, we are becoming more conservative, but it's for those that don't want anybody else in the state, that's probably the perfect scenario. But after all the time I spent on this Endow committee and for other, listening to other people, I really think that Wyoming needs to wake up and join the rest of the nation.
Senator Michael von Flatern, the Vice President of the Senate, it's an interesting session. Thank you very much for spending time with us on Capital Outlook. I'm glad you came here and to our beautiful hangar. And it is beautiful, and I should tell our viewers we're in Casper, and you operate your service in Casper and in Gillette. In Gillette, exactly. Thank you. Senator, best wishes. All right, thanks.